Well, hello, everyone. My name is Elena G. Levine. I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions. I'm a STEM career coach, a professional speaker, and author of several books, including my newest book, Create Your Unicorn Career, and the companion e-workbook, which will be out this year. And we're in the middle of a very challenging period of time and space right now, in particular here in the United States, where I'm based. And today we're going to talk about some very specific strategies and tactics that you can employ to get employed. And here's the spoiler alert about what we're talking about today. A lot of the things I'm going to be sharing with you do not necessarily focus on where to find a bunch of jobs and how to apply for a bunch of jobs. We are going to talk about that. But we're also going to take tactics and strategies that your competitors are not taking. See, in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of a challenge, in the middle of uncertainty, when everybody is in need of a job, and we always need jobs, right? You and I, we've got to get paid, right? But when everybody is specifically looking for jobs and there's a lot more candidates, we have to take unconventional methods to get employed. And so a lot of what we're doing today are things that your competitors are not going to know to do. They're not going to think to do. They're not going to want to do it because it takes a little bit more work. But this is the mechanism for you to get access to hidden opportunities and to get access to the larger job market, especially right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through a number of things that you can actually do literally today, and then help you build a plan going forward so that you are prepared and ready to go for whatever brings tomorrow. I will be giving quite a few bonuses, and you'll be able to get a QR code as we get closer to the end of our session today, which you can use to download all of the slides, a resume template, bonus slides, including additional scripts for networking purposes to access hidden jobs. I'm also going to be giving you a bonus article on how to follow up and a couple of other goodies too. So you are going to be able to have a lot of resources. And I'm also going to highlight all of the wonderful things that the American Astronomical Society is doing for you right now. But to be honest with you, it's par for the course for them. It's always there to serve you in your career development. So let's get started. And I want to just share with you a couple of quick stories about my own experience. I have been in many different career crises, many different challenges I've had. I lost my job. I was laid off during the recession, the Great Recession. In fact, I was laid off by an email from the finance director of my department while I was on a business trip for my boss. So that was very scary. And it was in the middle of a recession when there were very few jobs out there. And what I enabled myself to do was really leverage, quite honestly, so many of the different tactics that I'm going to be sharing with you today, I used during the recession to cushion myself, to network, to leverage and activate my personal board of directors, which is a group of people that I've been building relationships with over time who have my back, who support me in my goals, and really thinking entrepreneurially about building my career. Now, you'll hear me use the word entrepreneurial here today. And I just want to clarify, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are starting your own business, although you might consider doing that. And that's what I do. I have my own company. What I'm talking about is using the entrepreneurial mindset to look for opportunities where other people don't even know, or don't even think to look, or don't want to be bothered because it's too much work. So you adopt that mindset in the middle of a challenge zone, and that will enable you to advance beyond that moment of challenge. So that was when I was laid off in the recession, but I've also been fired at least 3 times that I can think of. I've been ghosted on contracts. I signed a very unfavorable contract right after my mother passed away. And during the pandemic, in the first 2 weeks of last 2 weeks of February and early March, I lost about 90% of my income in that 2-week period. And so I know hardship. I know what it's like to navigate a crisis when it's your personal crisis and the crisis of the people around you. And I know how difficult it is to preserve your mental health. And so what we're also talking about today are tools that you can use to actually help cushion the blow. So not only to advance and move forward, but honestly to honor and protect your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your physical health, while you also protect your own career health and that of the people around you, the people that you care about. So we're going to talk about that. So Let's discuss first and foremost the biggest mistakes that people make during a crisis as it relates to career development and job getting. And the first thing is that a lot of times we as humans, we tend to internalize the crisis or the layoff or the firing or whatever it happens to be, and we make that into our own identity. And for those of you who have heard me talk about failure before, you may have heard me use a phrase called fake failure syndrome, which is when we have a failure, we now adopt that as our own personality. I failed, therefore I am a failure. And you can imagine the challenge and the problem with adopting that mentality as your personality or as your identity, because A, you don't have time for that. You have to dig yourself out. We're in the middle of a crisis. We don't have time to wallow in that. And being in that space, in that headspace where you adopt the identity of being a failure, it prevents you from seeing a way forward, from seeing a way out of the pit towards success and joy and money, and also helping the people around you. So similarly, in a crisis environment, we tend to internalize that. And I definitely had that experience when I was laid off, right? My first thought was, I'm being laid off. What did I do? I messed up. There's something wrong with me. And so then that sort of snuck into the nooks and crannies in my brain and my heart, and it prevented me from moving as quickly as I needed to in the middle of that recession, the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. So we need to make sure that we don't internalize it. And some of the things that I'm going to be talking with you today will actually help you to do that. The second mistake that I see a lot of people make during a crisis environment is that they tend to undervalue themselves. So many astronomers, and I've been working with the AAS now for I think it might be even 16 years at this point. And I have a background, my degree is in mathematics, but as many of you know, I used to be in astronomy and physics until I was seduced by the dark side and got my degree in math. But you also know I never left astronomy and physics. So I have worked my entire career with you, for you, and around you. And so I can tell you, in working with astronomers for many, many, many years on your careers, I know for a fact that so many of you tend to undervalue yourselves. And I know this because I look at your resumes or your curriculum vitas, and you only talk about astronomy. You only use examples from astronomy research. You talk about skills that are literally related to astronomy. And the reality is you actually have a much bigger profile. And here's the cool thing, it's actually a much more valuable profile when you market it effectively. But we can't communicate your value to any potential employer if we are not truly understanding the full profile of who you are as an asset to that organization, to that party. So the first thing we have to make sure is that we are not undervaluing ourselves, because the implied next step is that if you undervalue, you are under marketing and underselling yourself, and also under exploring for opportunities. And we're going to tell the true full story of who you are as a value creator for an organization. And by the way, the talk that I'm giving today is relevant and applicable to any ecosystem. So if you are in academia now and you want to stay in academia, it's relevant. If you're in academia and you want to move to industry, it's relevant. If you are, for example, here in the United States and you want to move abroad, this is relevant as well. So it's any movement in any direction, or even staying in your own ecosystem that you're occupying right now. This is all universal. We always have to value the full profile of what we can provide an employer, and we have to tell them that story. That is not bragging, that is effective and appropriate and needed marketing. So you're going to hear me use that word. I think a lot of times the other mistake that people make is they keep their gaze narrowed. So I see this with physicists in particular, where physicists will only look for jobs with the word physics or physicist in the title. And the reality is that you as a physicist, because so many of you really, really are, you are, and we can talk more broadly, you as an astronomer, astrophysicist, cosmologist, or exoplanet specialist, you all have way more possibilities for careers and jobs. But you probably have had advisors just like I who only told you about one or two or three different options. Certainly my mathematics advisor gave me that. So we keep our gaze narrowed and only see astronomy jobs or physics jobs or jobs in universities when there's actually way more. So we have to expand our gaze. And the way we do that is from networking. And we're going to talk more about that. And then we do have to make sure that we are networking, and recognizing what it is. It's about building win-win relationships with people over time, where you are providing value to me, I am providing value to you, we are investing in the long haul, we're coming together to create something fresh, and it is not slimy, it is not disrespectful, it is not inappropriate. In fact, it is the opposite of all those things. Networking is the most honorable endeavor in which you can engage, because at its heart is the spirit of generosity. And I got to tell you, we're in a challenging period right now. And I do believe that there's going to be two things that are actually going to help us as humans out of this moment. And one of them, I think, is art. Like, I do think the artists, the comedians, the performers, the artists can actually, the visual artists can actually help us navigate this time, even drawing truth to power. But I think that they can provide us with models of moving forward. But the other thing that I think is going to help us during this challenging time is very, very, very small acts of service. So the teeniest, tiniest nano action, or atto action, shall we say, of support and kindness that you can help and serve with other people around you, anywhere. Telling somebody that they hope you're having a great day, complimenting them on their work or whatever it is that they do. These little random small acts of kindness, I think, are actually going to be hugely helpful to us. And honestly, it dovetails very nicely with the way you and I want to move forward in our lives and our careers. Of course, we want to act with generosity. That's why you became an astronomer. That's why you want to serve science and humanity, because you want to help people understand the world, the universe that we live in. That is the ultimate act of generosity. And so what we want to do during this moment is we want to really embody that and help others navigate this time too. And we can do that through networking. I think a lot of times people think that this process that I'm going to give you is linear. And in fact, I'm going to start off our conversation in a few moments with several actions that you can take immediately. But interestingly enough, these are non-linear actions, meaning that you can slot them into your process at any given time. You can come back to them. You could put it at the end, start somewhere else, and come back. It's really a very non-linear system that you and I are working in, and we just need to be mindful of that. This is not a linear process. The other thing you want to think about is that the job search process is not about you. It is about what you can do for me. And so during COVID, when I lost 90% of my business, after getting really hysterical and eating a lot of cupcakes, I decided to try a different tactic. And instead of ODing on cupcakes, I began to think, what can I do at this moment in time and space? What do I have to serve my community? And I realized that I was very comfortable with delivering virtual presentations because I had been doing it for many years, so I could do webinars. And I had skills and experience that would be helpful to my community at this moment. And I could speak on topics like networking from afar, virtual interviewing, or career planning in a crisis. And so I reached out to all of my current clients, former clients, people in my network I had never done business with, who had never paid me, nothing like that, people who were just in my community. And I didn't say, can you give me, I need money, I need help, give me, me. I didn't do that. Instead, I said, what can I do to help you? And I described a couple of different options. I can do webinars, I can speak on these topics. How can I help you, your students, your postdocs, your colleagues, your stakeholders, your members right now? And what ended up happening was that year in 2020, I was able to make my income back and then some from this act of generosity. Was I hurting? Absolutely. Did I need money? Yes, we all need money at any given time. We have to pay for food and rent and transportation and childcare and makeup and cupcakes and tacos. Those are my priorities. So we have to be paid. But I knew that my community was hurting as well. And I knew that if I adopted a fully generous mindset, I was going to be able to help everybody. I would benefit too. But by helping others, I would be feeding myself. And I mean that literally and figuratively. And so when you think about that, the job search process is when you realize that it's not about what you can get from the employer, that you're not trying to explore a new universe, or you're not trying to leverage your skills to do X and Y, or you want to take on a challenge, but instead you want to tell them specifically what it is you can do for them, things turn around. And then they begin to see that you would be an asset and an excellent partner. Another problem that a lot of people don't want to solve is the idea of not customizing or investing the time. This is not an easy process. It is a simple process, absolutely, and you'll be able to adjust it according to your own specifications. But it's not easy and it's not quick. This is not going to happen in a week. This is going to happen over weeks and weeks and weeks, and it might even be months. But if you put in the effort, what you will do is you will get progress and you will be moving forward. And that is the point. But you also have to make sure that you are customizing all of your materials. You can't rely on just a one stop all resume or one only CV or one cover letter. You're going to have multiple cover letters. So templates of multiple cover letters for different types of roles and different types of ecosystems. And you're going to have multiple resumes, multiple CVs, and multiple outputs, which we're going to talk more about. The other challenge is not responding or acting quickly. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is what happens when a recruiter or a headhunter contacts you and says, are you interested in the role? And I have had coaching clients who don't respond right away. And then they're confused as to why they're not getting interviews or why they're not getting offers. Well, recruiters have a problem. The problem is that they have to find a few candidates who will advance the goals of their organization and will make them look good to their boss. So they're looking for candidates to fit that role or potentially fit future roles as well, but they are specifically in need of them right now. So that means that you have to, if a recruiter contacts you on LinkedIn, you have to respond very, very quickly if you want the opportunity. You can decide later that you don't want it. You can decide, go through the entire interview process and get the offer, and then engage in the networking, in the negotiation, and then decide you don't want it. And that's your prerogative. And there's nothing wrong with that. But please, if somebody contacts you and says, we want to talk to you about a role, please at least respond quickly and say, thank you so much. I'd love to chat with you. When in the next few days would you be available for a quick appointment? I'm based in Singapore and my time zone is X. So make sure you tell everyone where you're located so that they know the time zone. That's very, very helpful. And then the final thing is not leveraging a process. So this is a step-by-step process. You have to follow the steps. You can add and substitute, but you do need a process. And the process helps you to map your progress and get towards success. That is the key. So if we're going to move forward, there's a few things that you need to be mindful of. And the first thing you want to be mindful of is understanding the ecosystem that we are in right now. So recognizing that the ecosystem is in pain. And when you can identify the specific pain points of the parties that you want to work with and for, then you're able to tailor your materials for those specific people, those parties, that particular pain. It is not lying. It is not embellishing. We don't do that. We only tell the truth. But if you have a skill set in C# and C++ and R and all sorts of different tools that are useful for this community, they need to know that. And if that's going to help them alleviate a pain point, they definitely need to know that. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of what is the pain that exists in the community and how can I help to solve it. So the ecosystem that we're in right now, as you know, is a very challenging ecosystem. We're dealing with an economy that I do believe is going to get more challenging. It's in trouble now, and I think it's going to get even worse. I do believe that we're going to be in a recession. There's a lot of people in pain for many, 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 many reasons, and it's exacerbating day by day. And there's going to be a tsunami of people looking for work, particularly people who are coming out of the federal government in the United States, or people who are professors who are losing their grants. So you and I, we do not stick our head in the sand. You know that phrase, right? We don't pretend that things aren't happening. We look at the truth of the situation because there's power to draw from that situation, but we have to acknowledge what is actually happening in the ecosystem. The next thing you have to realize is that if people have pain, the second thing is you have solutions. So we're going to act with generosity, and we're going to look to see what we can do with our skills right now to serve another party, to serve an organization, to serve a community, to serve an individual. And so a lot of this is going to involve conversations with people to better understand what pain are they in right now, because it's only in those conversations that you will uncover the hidden opportunities. But to do that, you have to do the third thing, which is you have to market what you do. So we cannot rely on hoping and praying that when somebody gets our CV, that they can figure out what it is that we can do for them. They don't have time. You and I don't have time. There's no time because of that tsunami of people and because of the overarching challenge of being in a very, very challenging environment. It really weights on your soul at times. So we cannot expect somebody to become an archaeologist to have to sift through and figure out the treasure of who you are, the skills you bring, the problems you can solve, the value you can create. We have to make it incredibly easy for them to understand what it is we can do to help them. And when you do that, when you connect the dots, when you build the bridge very, very quickly, it moves you more quickly through the phase of getting a job. But the other thing it does is it does not frustrate the other party, right? If I'm the other party and I have to figure out what it is you can do for me, you're frustrating me. And I'm going to move on to somebody who's going to make it more easy for me. Because at the moment, I need to hire somebody. I don't necessarily need to hire you. I need to hire somebody. You want to be that somebody, and you may even need to be that somebody. Well, if you want or need to be the somebody who is hired, you have to make it easy for me to understand what it is that you can do for me. So you have to effectively and truthfully market yourself. And then the fourth thing we need to be aware of is that we are going to access the full job market. So your competitors are only looking for jobs that are advertised. And there are plenty of places to look for jobs that are advertised, and the AAS job register is one of them. And Diane, if you don't mind, could you throw that link for the American Astronomical Society Job Bank into the chat for people, because that's a fantastic resource. Your colleagues are looking at that, but you and I, we're going to be a little bit smarter. We're going to take a couple of other tactics so that you get access to not just that job market, but an entire suite of jobs that are not advertised. And just to give you an example of everything that I'm talking about, I've talked about already, just to give you an example of that. This story that I'm about to tell you actually goes back almost 25 years. So when I was working for the University of Arizona in the 2000s, I'm old, and I was involved with my local professional association. I served on the board, and then I became president. And there was somebody who had just rolled off the presidency. He was still on the board with me. We knew each other. We interacted. He moved out of Tucson, where I live, and he moved to another place. And by 2019, the LinkedIn algorithm must have known that we had run in the same circles, because I kept seeing his name pop up. And we connected, and we started commenting on each other's posts. And then in 2023, this person commented or liked one of my posts on LinkedIn. So I messaged him through the platform, and I said, "Hey, it's so great to see you. Thanks for liking my post. Hey, I see you work for Organization X. Why don't we have a conversation? Maybe there's something we can do to collaborate. I'd love to support your efforts. Here's my Calendly link." So I made it very easy. He booked the meeting, I think within a day or two. And we had a meeting within a week or two. And that led to a job being created for me in his organization, a 10-month contract to deliver a series of webinars and a fireside chat and an in-person, it became a virtual, but it was a keynote. They bought books, they bought workbooks, they bought coaching. It was everything that you could imagine. And it was essentially a job for a 10-month period. I'm still in it as we're chatting. This did not exist. This was not advertised. This was created for me, with him, when the two of us came together, and I listened for his pain, and I shared what it is that I could do to help alleviate that pain out of the spirit of generosity. Was I in pain? Absolutely. Was he in pain? Yes. Could we come together and help each other? Yes. And that's what we did. That job did not exist. We created it together. That is the kind of value that I'm talking about that you can create when you follow this process. So do not rely on job ads alone. They're very, very helpful. They're very, very useful, but you're competing against potentially hundreds and hundreds of people. When you are networking and leveraging the larger job market, the unseen job market, the hidden jobs that you get access to from networking and listening for people to describe their pain, then you have the competitive advantage. And in some cases, you will have a 100% competitive advantage, just like I had with that role. Nobody else was going for it because it was created just for me. So I love those odds, don't you? So we're looking to advance your odds as much as we possibly can. So what we want to do is we want to identify a bunch of key issues that are taking place right now and think about what our corresponding strategies are going to be. So we, you, I, them, our community has a lot of fear and uncertainty. So you and I, we are going to act with generosity. We are going to look to help. That's how we're going to navigate. It's going to serve our mental health. It's going to serve everybody. We recognize that people and organizations and projects are in pain. So we're going to look to see what our solutions, the value we can create, our skills, our experience, our problem-solving abilities, we're going to look to see how that can help fill a gap or alleviate that pain point. We're going to recognize that this is a dynamic, complex system, so we have to move quickly. We cannot wait to respond to people who reach out to us or wait for people to reach out to us. We have to take action. We see a scarcity of seen opportunities, but that's okay because we're going to leverage networking to get access to the hidden job market. We're unclear who or how we can help. Well, we're going to clearly communicate what it is we can do for others to enable them, which is then going to give us access to even more opportunities. This is not going to be easy or linear, so we're going to have our regimented plan. You have worry and fear and regret and grief and sadness and all sorts of other emotions. We acknowledge that. You're a human. I am too. I am experiencing these same things. But what we do know is what we can control. And that's what we're going to seize on. We can control our networking. We can control what and how we market ourselves so that we can get the sale. The sale is the job offer. That's what we're aiming to get. And I call it a sale because it is a business transaction. You are marketing your abilities to help another party. And when they hire you, they're going to pay you money, right? They should. They're going to pay you money. That is a business transaction. So you are trying to make a sale with your marketing materials, with your interviewing, with your conversations, your job talks, and so forth. So I use that phrase just for us to remember. So we're going to start by crafting a job search strategy and process. You're going to create one that works for you, that leverages how you solve problems, how you take in data, and how you use that data to inform additional actions and questions, how you analyze that data and turn it into information that enables you to figure out what to do next. But here's a simple way to think about. What we want to do is we want an organization and tracking process, and you can do this literally on a Google Sheet if you wanted. And I also have a workbook coming out this year, which actually has a template to do this too. And we'll give you some information about that in a few minutes. But basically, why not just create a Google Sheet that literally says each column is devoted to a number of different things with each person. So that each row is dedicated to a person that you talk to, and another sheet could be dedicated to jobs that you pursue. You can apply for jobs. And another sheet could be just keeping track of the different actions that you are going to take. What I recommend is that you pick a number, a quantity of things that you can actually do every day, every week, and every month. Because nothing is going to happen if you cannot collect data and if you cannot track your progress. So an example of this type of method, this type of process is I might say, all right, every day I'm going to go on LinkedIn for a half an hour. And I'm going to identify 3 people, and I'm going to contact 3 people. So half hour, 3 people, 3 people. Those are very specific quantities that I can achieve. What I recommend is if you do best with a very specific accountability number, right? I want to have a number that I do every day, then do that. If you do best with time, I want to spend an hour every day applying for jobs, editing my resume, doing networking, finding people, posting things on LinkedIn, fine. If you want to do a combination, fine. The fine part is all dedicated to how you solve problems best. And we are adhering to what it is that is important to you. So we have to develop a tracking and a organizational system so that it actually makes sense for who you are. What I would recommend is you set a timeline that makes sense for you. So let's say you're finishing up your postdoc in the next 6 months. So let's say by December, your postdoc contract ends. Okay, great. So we have 6 months, right? No, actually, this is not 6 months. We're going to set a goal deadline of 4 months. So I always like to give myself 2 months of contingency just in case. So I set a goal of 4 months so that I have that 2-month window. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to start keeping track of what it is that you're doing every day, every week, and every month to move you forward. Incorporate it into your life. Be mindful of your mental capacity. And if you're currently working, you have to continue doing excellent work, right? That is a priority. But you do want to make sure that you are actually achieving these goals. And one of my coaching clients, what she likes to do, she loves the accountability. So at the end of every day, her job is to do 3 things. And those 3 things vary. So sometimes it's like a couple of jobs. Sometimes it's like 2 reach outs on LinkedIn. Sometimes it's I spend 20 minutes researching this company. But she does 3 things every single day that are designed to advance her and get her a job. And she texts me every single day with those 3 things at the end of the day so that I can then give her a thumbs up and you rock and just a cheer squad for her because she needs that accountability. So figure out what it is that you need and remember that you are in charge of this process. You can make it happen. So here are the 4 nonlinear actions that you can immediately incorporate into your work. And I see that some people are sending in questions. I am going to begin to answer them. I appreciate this question came in about resumes. Give me a few minutes and I will address that. So thank you. Keep your questions coming, by the way. So the first nonlinear action I'm going to encourage you to engage in is, and again, reminder, when I say nonlinear action, I mean that you can slot this in at any point in this process. So you can do it at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, combination. You can do this every week. It's just a certain set of steps that are not tied to the order of the events. So you can do them at any point. The first nonlinear action you want to take is really leveraging your resources that the AAS offers. So the AAS has an entire library of webinars that we have produced. You can access that. Diane, if you can throw that link in the chat, I'd appreciate it. They have conversations it's a program called COCO, which is it's conversations about opportunities outside of academia. The employment committee is very heavily engaged in building lots of opportunities to build your career beyond academia. And in fact, there's a LinkedIn group, and I highly encourage you to join it. The Beyond Astronomy Career Network. You absolutely want to be a part of that. This is a group of people who, out of the spirit of generosity, are trying to help you. They are trying to help all of us. So be a part of this, contribute, and you'll be able to benefit from it as well. The membership, the AAS membership is really doing some wonderful things, very generous things. So the AAS has waived membership dues. If you have not renewed yet for 2025, highly encourage you to renew because the dues are waived for the year. And if you need to be reinstated because of a lag in your membership, they're waiving the $10 reinstatement fee. So really, really they are being incredibly mindful of what it is that they can do to help you. And there's going to be a number of career and professional development workshops at the AAS 246 meeting coming up in just a few weeks. And so I hope you'll join us for that as well. And so we'll be able to get you more details about those types of resources. Okay, so the second nonlinear action that you want to be mindful of is an acronym. And this acronym, to be honest with you, the spoiler alert is that it completely recenters the power in you. So the challenge in a crisis environment is that we feel like we are just moving very, very quickly. We can't even begin to think about like, what can we do, right? We're being moved through a river that we have no control over. And I was just talking to my friend and I said, it feels like with all the changes that are happening every minute, every second, every nanosecond, it kind of feels like not that we're in a river that keeps moving that we have no control over. It feels like we are in a system that keeps changing the physics. So it's changing from liquid to solid to plasma to gas and back forward and back again and to some other system as well that has completely new physics. We don't understand the rules anymore. So this is a very, very difficult situation. So what we do with this acronym is it reminds you who you are and it reminds you what power you have, and that is critical. So the acronym is LTFOOT, and one of my coaching clients used it as a verb, and so now I use it as a verb. So I say, all right, let's Lieutenant Foot. So what does this stand for? Leverage the F out of this. So we are going to leverage the F out of everything, good and bad, not in a bad way, but we're going to leverage. If something bad happens, we lose our job, I'm going to leverage it. If I apply for a job and I don't get it, I'm going to leverage it. If I get the job, I'm going to leverage it to give back. And I want to give you an example of how you could lieutenant foot something. And here's a real example. Let's say you applied for a job and you didn't get it. All right, great. It doesn't sound like it's great, but we can lieutenant foot this. And what happens is you remind yourself how much control and agency you have to mine this moment for diamonds to serve your community even more so, which gives you more power. It allows you to reframe the situation, and then you're able to move beyond this. So let's say you didn't get the job, you applied for a job. How could we lieutenant foot leverage the F out of this? All right. Number one, I can use it as a prompt to review my marketing materials, right? I can use it as a prompt to review my resume, my CV, my cover letter, my LinkedIn profile, the way I'm reaching out to people, my interviewing prep. Maybe if I'm doing job talks, I can review my job talk and I can see, am I effectively communicating my value? Number two, I can start to expand my networking and get better at networking. So doing a lot more of it and then aiming to improve the quality of it. I can widen my gaze for jobs. I can reevaluate, is this really something that I want to do? Or am I shoulding all over myself, saying I should want this, I should do this, or I shouldn't do that? This is a perfect opportunity to leverage this moment to review whether this is actually something that's right for you. I can explore what else I can do to be competitive. Maybe it involves new credentials, a course, a Coursera, something I can do for free. Maybe I want to apply for an award or serve on a committee. I can leverage this moment to start serving as a leader in my organization, particularly the AAS, to increase my visibility, to increase my impact, to amplify my brand, which is my promise of value. I can write up my experience in a blog, an article, to share what I learned from this experience with others, right? Talking about serving others. I can contact my alma mater, the place where I got a degree, and offer to give a talk to students about maintaining resiliency and thinking about how they can better communicate their value and look for jobs in astronomy beyond academia or beyond other communities. I could even use this as a moment to examine my finances to see, do I have all the financial structures in place so I know exactly what's coming in and what's coming out of my household? And then I can remind myself I can handle this type of situation because I studied astronomy. That means that I am very comfortable with looking into a void and trying to understand, measure it, and explain it. That means that I can handle this teeny tiny little thing of losing my job. And I'm not trying to minimize it, by the way. I do believe, talking about art, in extracting the comedic value from every experience that we have as much as possible in a very respectful way. And so this is a very challenging moment. And I think in some cases, it really does help to laugh. And so that's why I add the humor. I just wanted you to be aware of that. So remind yourself that you are made for this moment, that you have the skills to be able to navigate this moment, and you will be able to move beyond this moment, particularly with Lieutenant Foot. Another nonlinear action you can take is actually to look at job advertisements. So on the job register for the AAS, as well as on Indeed.com, Glassdoor.com, LinkedIn is becoming more and more and more a place where there are many, many jobs. And not only that, but it's more jobs there that are advertised only on LinkedIn than anywhere else. So you absolutely have to be on LinkedIn. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is not just apply for jobs, but actually use the job advertisements as your personal inventory and a research source to understand what is happening in the community. What organizations are looking for talent? What skills and experience are they talking about? What language are they using to describe the skills, the qualifications, the responsibilities, and so forth? Can I use that to identify leaders in the community? Can I get insight about corporate or organizational culture or sector and ecosystem influences? All of these things I can get access to by looking at the job ad. And because of that, the job advertisement becomes not just a springboard to apply for that job, but it becomes a very critical data source for you to better understand, especially when you look at many job ads, so you have a big data set, to see what it is that you can do beyond what you think you can do at the moment. And you can look at a job ad and use that as ammunition and use that as language to talk with people, to actually network. So the two things will actually work well with each other. And then, of course, you also have to organize your marketing materials. So you need your LinkedIn profile, and I highly, 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 highly encourage you to have a LinkedIn profile. And Diane, if you don't mind throwing my LinkedIn into the chat for people, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Use my LinkedIn as your template. You absolutely have to be on LinkedIn, especially right now in time and space, whether you're in academia or not, because we are also preparing for a potentiality or a possibility that you may lose your job in the future, and you want to have everything ready to go if that happens. I did not during the recession, and I was incredibly scared and adrift, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm giving you insight and tips that I wish I had had during the Great Recession. And to be honest with you, things I wish I had known even at the beginning of COVID, where I could have navigated it a little bit easier. So we want to have all these things ready to go. So you need a LinkedIn profile because that's where everybody is networking and doing appropriate self-promotion and where jobs are advertised. And where you can be seen as a value creator and authority in your field. We're going to need a resume or a CV or both. We're going to need a series of cover letter templates, cold emails, so templates of how to reach out to people. We're going to need your value statement or your elevator pitch or your brand statement. And all of these are nonlinear because you're going to do these multiple times in this process. So in other words, as you talk to people, as you look at job ads, as you network, as you apply for jobs, as you market yourself, you're actually going to go back to these materials and edit them. So don't think of this as I need to do this now and then never adjust them. You do it now, great, but as you have conversations with people and they drop breadcrumbs into the conversation, like they keep mentioning project management, and you realize, wait a second, I have project management, I can help people with that, then you can go back to your materials and start talking about project management in your skills and in your experience because you have it. We don't lie, we don't embellish, we just tell the truth. But now we've heard a number of people talk about the importance of project management, so great. Now I know I need to be able to highlight that in my materials if I'm going to get the opportunities that I want or need or both. So we use every action in this process as a way to inform the other action. So what we are doing, just to clarify for you, is we're building what I call a unicorn career. A unicorn career is a customized, authentic career that brings you joy, meaning, and money, because of course, like I said, you've got to get paid, and you've got to get paid appropriately for your contributions to society. It is built in the spirit of generosity. And the framework that we use to do this is very simple. And I've actually been hinting at all pieces of this already. We're going to look at intrinsic data, extrinsic data, and then build a bridge of marketing between the two areas. So intrinsic data comes from your head and your heart. I'm going to give you an example of a couple of tasks that you can do today in a few moments to get access to the full data set of who you are, your skills, your problem-solving abilities, but also think more broadly. What do you love and what do you hate? What brings you joy? What brings you pain in your day-to-day, in your work? What's your definition of success? What are your values? What are your non-negotiables? So you want to be mindful of that full data set of your intrinsic data. We pair that with extrinsic data. This is information about the ecosystems, the sectors, the industries, the organizations, the people, the departments, the fields, any sort of opportunity. What happens is we get this somewhat from secondary source research, like reading articles and blogs and listening podcasts. But the best information, the really valuable information, that comes from networking. Because when you're talking with people, that's when they actually share with you hidden information about their pain. That's when they drop into the conversation a breadcrumb, blah, 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 blah. Yes, we really are working to improve our project management workflows. You hear them describe that and you realize, wait a second, my entire postdoc was project management. All I did for the last 4 years was work on different projects and manage them and manage budgets and manage inventory and manage standard operating procedures and manage workflows and manage schedules. I know how to handle this. So now we kick in the third component, which is that bridge of marketing, where even potentially in real time, you suddenly say to me, Elena, that's so interesting that you do so much project management at Company X. You know, for the last 4 years in my postdoc, I have been incredibly involved, very detailed involved in project management. Maybe there's something I can do to assist you. And suddenly you're getting access to hidden opportunities. So this is the model that we use, and this is the model that you can use to advance, especially during a crisis. So keep in mind, I also recognize during a crisis, you may not have time because you need money to evaluate and go back and forth between like, is this the perfect job? Is this the fantasy job? I just need a job. You may just need a job and you may just need income. And I totally get that. And that's important to be honest with yourself about. However, you can also use that job as a step towards your unicorn career because every job you have gives you data about yourself. It helps you understand what it is that you want to do different, better, or more, as my counselor says. It helps you to refine your skills and the abilities that you use to add value to your employer. It is an incredibly enriching experience to be in any job if you look at it as a mine that you are going to mine so that you can better understand yourself and how you can serve others. So it's very, very critical. So before I go into a couple of things that you can download from your brain and your heart to move yourself forward, I want to address a few questions. So the first person who's anonymous asked this question: some organizations will accept resumes to their talent communities, which essentially means you can submit a resume to an organization without applying to a particular position. Are these sorts of opportunities helpful? And do you have any recommendations of how to craft a story for these opportunities that may be looked at broadly? So first of all, thank you so much for that great question. Very rarely do I get that question, and it is incredibly useful. So it's super awesome that you brought this to our attention. So yes, these opportunities are helpful. Anytime you have the exposure, right? Anytime you can be in a place where resumes are being aggregated and collected so that when a client, meaning the employer, when the employer needs somebody, they go to that resume bank first to look for people or invite them to apply for specific jobs. That is fantastic. Fabulous. You absolutely want to be a part of that. So yes, do that. Now, the question that you ask is, how do you customize it? If you're sending in a resume or a CV to a large company and you don't know what the role is just yet, how do you customize it? This is where the networking can help you. Because if you had allies within that organization or more broadly in that industry or sector who can give you ideas as to these are the things you want to mention on your resume if you're sending in a generic resume for any opportunity within the organization. This is the language you want to use. These are some of our projects. So if you have alignment with your background, you want to reference that. That is going to be very helpful. Anything that gives you a competitive advantage is going to be a powerful action to take. And that's the kind of thing that does. So combining networking with what you're describing, parking your resume on a resume bank within an organization, very, very smart. I like how you're thinking. The next question that came in, another anonymous question. I'm a recent bachelor's degree in physics and statistics. Awesome. My background's mathematics, as you know, with a lot of research experience who hasn't had much luck this graduate school cycle. My deepest empathy to you. I know how challenging it is. Do you have any suggestions on how to better my chances for the next cycle, or do you suggest branching into something new? So potentially both. So if you need money or if you need to move forward in your career, this might be a time to start looking for other opportunities. And to advance and better your chances the next cycle, you can leverage networking. So I think a lot of times people don't realize if you're applying for graduate school, and you can do this for postdoc appointments too. If you're looking at, let's say, 15 universities or 15 research groups or 15 PIs, principal investigators, you can contact those people in advance. And you can, like, if I wanted to go to the University of Arizona, that's my alma mater, their graduate school in astronomy, I would look on the website to see who's doing work that I'm really interested in. I'd pick maybe 5 faculty at the U of A. I would email them and say, I'm going to be applying in the next cycle. What you do with exoplanets is so interesting. And this is where I want to be in my research career. Would you be open to a 15-minute conversation in the next few weeks? I'd love to learn more about what it is I can do to position myself for success in the graduate school when I apply next semester. And I want to better understand what the vibe is here as well. That's going to give you invaluable inside information. So totally encourage you to do that. So as far as branching out, you have to follow what is right for you. And if you need money, and if there's also a visa issue and you need to be employed, you have to follow that. So I see there's some more questions coming in. I'm going to come back to those questions in a bit. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to start taking an inventory of what problems you have solved and what skills you have gained in all of your different projects, experiences, TA-ship, postdoc, projects as an undergrad, things outside astronomy in the university, everything. And so one of the tools I'm going to send you is this document. It's a skill inventory matrix, so you can collect all of your skills in different categories to help you tell the full true story of who you are as a value creator. And one of the things that, and I'm going to send this to you, by the way, and one of the things that always surprises me is that you don't realize what type of business skills you have, which you have a huge, huge portfolio of business skills. And here's the trick. If you are applying for a job in industry, you absolutely have to make sure you talk about your business skills. Why? Because companies are businesses. They want to make money, and you have to be able to help them understand that you know that you speak their language. So you're going to talk about your business skills. And some of your business skills I've already mentioned, like project management, if you've been on a grant writing and communications and accounting and finance and budgeting and training and risk management and public and media relations and event planning and safety. There's so many other business skills. You'll get this whole list. So we're engaging in networking to get access to those hidden opportunities. And as a reminder, what we're talking about is a mutually beneficial relationship that is a spectrum of activities, starting with the first point of contact, aiming for a win-to-win-win partnership where we're investing in a long haul, mutually beneficial alliance, where we're both helping each other. That's what networking is. And I call it a dynamic continuum in the sense that it actually gives you more data and it allows you to give more data, which then gives you more opportunity to be competitive, right? If I have multiple chances to get to know you, I'm developing a big picture, a more complete picture of you as a value creator in my organization. So when I have a need, I think of you because I've gotten to know more about you and more of you. And similarly, you've gotten to know more about my organization, which means your formal application materials are very specifically customized to me. That's the value of this dynamic continuum. So how do you find people to network? Ask people around you, look at the directory of the AAS, and this is why you want to join. Conferences, you want to see who's speaking and email people in advance. I do this all the time. I email people and I say, I see you're speaking. I'm excited to come to your talk. Or I see you're speaking at this conference. I'm not able to come to the conference, but I'd love to meet with you to talk about what you do. Would you be open to a conversation? And you'd be surprised what people say. They're like, yes. And now I have a meeting with somebody. I might find people from reading articles or papers, people who are quoted in media, alumni associations, and definitely social networks like LinkedIn and Blue Sky. So what do you say when you're networking in a layoff or some other career crisis? First and foremost, I'm going to be aiming to have a call to action for myself that I want to contact X number of people every day. And I'm going to suggest if you are in the middle of a crisis right now, that you start with the number 5, that I'm going to aim to reach out to 5 people a day. If after a week that seems too overwhelming to you, whittle it back. I'm going to say, I hope this finds you safe and well. I'm going to say I'm going to be open. I'm in a career transition, was recently laid off, or my position was eliminated. I'm exploring or considering new opportunities. I'm excited about the future where I can do X. I'm interested in learning more about X. I want to see what we can do to catch up. I'd appreciate any ideas you have to improve my resume. I'm thinking of applying for a role here. I'd like to see how I can use my skills in your organization, and I'd love to learn how I can help you. And then you ask them for what you want. So you have the meeting, and I'm going to give you a script to get to talk about what you say in the meeting. But at the meeting, you also have to ask them what it is you actually want. So again, you're not relying on them to guess. So I'm interested in learning more about X. Do you have suggestions of people who do X? Who in your network would you feel comfortable introducing me to? If I wanted to do X, what are my next best steps? How can we collaborate? How can we work together? Is there an opportunity to join your organization? And what's your advice if I wanted to do X? So these are the things I say in the conversation to get access to the data so I can effectively build a bridge, a marketing bridge, because marketing is how you and I do our business. And when I say our business, I mean get jobs and serve humanity. That is our business. So we have to market ourselves. So your resume is a marketing channel, and I'm going to send you a resume template. You're not bragging. You have to tell the full truth on this document. And you have to do so by focusing on skills, experience, and problem solving, adding those business skills, and then translating into their language. We're also going to optimize social media like LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that you are using it effectively, creating a posting plan, doing keyword searches, looking for jobs. If there's an easy apply, that's a term in LinkedIn, which means you can quickly just send in an application. Always customize it. Don't just click and go. Customize it, because your colleagues and your competitors are not customizing it. When you customize it, you get the opportunity. And then you're going to be actually applying for jobs. So do upload your resume to job boards and resume banks, connect with decision makers, and recognize that this is a numbers game. And if a recruiter contacts you, respond quickly, aim to book a meeting, be helpful to them because they have a problem, you're trying to solve it for them, introduce them to people, and then let them know if you're not the right fit. I mean, you can introduce them to people. And please, for your sake, consider applying even if you don't see an immediate alignment, because there could be something that you could do later on. It could be in the negotiation, but follow up and stay in touch. So here's how you get access to those bonus materials. And then I'm going to just take some final questions from you. So you can go to this QR code, or you can go to talk.ac/Elena J. Levine and enter the code ASTROLIFTOFF, all one word. And what you're going to get is all of these slides, bonus slides, which I did not show, a resume template. You're going to get access to ways that you can connect with me and also book career consulting. And we'll put that in the link as well. And you're going to get other materials as well, and also an article on how to follow up with people. So I am here as a resource for you. This is not an easy time. The time is not simple. It's a very complex system right now. However, using these tools, you can develop a process that makes sense for you that will advance your goals. So I'm going to stop there. I'll keep this up for just a few moments, but I'm going to entertain your questions. While I pull up the questions, Diane, if you don't mind just throwing back into the chat my LinkedIn for people to connect with me. Oh, we already did that. Thank you, Alessandra. I appreciate you doing that. And also, if you want, and I see that it's already in here, if you want to book a career consultation with me, I am offering a special offer for you who are attending this webinar, both recorded version as well as live. And this is a chance to book a 30-minute resume review, CV review, career consultation with me. And once you purchase, I'll send you my calendar link so you can get on my calendar as soon as possible. And then I'm also going to give you the chance to pre-order my book that's coming out this year as well. So with that in mind, thank you so much, Diane. With that in mind, I'm going to stick around for some questions. All right, what else do we got? Let me see. Okay, so this person says, after an observing intensive, get it? Yeah, I guess. Okay. Yes. After an observing intensive PhD and a hardware instrumentation intensive postdoc, I like how you say that, I am applying for data science positions and South Pole winter over positions, because why not? I love your attitude. That is fabulous. And I met somebody in the physics department at the University of Arizona many years ago who had done that as, I think, a grad student, or as in one of his early postdocs, or it might have been a gap year, and he loved it. Despite a decade of Python experience in data analysis using scikit-learn and other tools I see listed in job postings, the only positions I'm getting interviews for are the winter over positions. I'm making customized resumes and cover letters for the data science roles, but I'm not hearing anything for the industry roles. What should I be doing next? Informational interviews, having my resumes looked over by many people, question mark, question mark. So first of all, thank you for that great question. And also I want to acknowledge that, and I'm sure many people have that same challenge. Diane, I just want to check in with you because we're almost at time. Do you have a few minutes so that I can stick around and answer a few additional questions, or do we need to go on the hour?
Nope, absolutely. You can go
Okay.
over time.
Okay, cool. And if any of you need that QR code, I can put it back for you. So there are a number of things that you can be doing. So first and foremost, there was a webinar that I did for AAS called Land Your Unicorn Job in Industry, which we recorded. And Diane, if you don't mind throwing that link into the chat for people, there I go into excruciating detail specifically for industry, although there's relevance to other ecosystems as well. So I think that will be useful. You want to network. You absolutely want to network. And we also have a number of webinars that we have done that's also in that catalog on what I mean by networking and how to do it and how to do it effectively. So you definitely want to have those informational interviews, but don't call them that. Call them informal conversations to explore the potential to collaborate. So you're being totally honest. But if you use the word informational interview, they may not think that you want to build a relationship with them. And they may think that you're just using them for information. And that's not what you're reaching out to them to do. You are there because you truly want to see what you can do to help. So the next thing I would do is the mistakes that I mentioned that a lot of people make in a layoff and in a crisis environment that I mentioned at the top of our webinar today, to be honest with you, are actually mistakes I see with a lot of scientists who are moving beyond academia. And I see this particularly with astronomers who are moving into data science roles, where you only talk about the metrics of success in academia. So what happens is that if I am a data scientist in company X and I get your resume in front of me and you're only talking about astronomy and you're using astronomy jargon and you're not talking about business skills, which I need in my business, right? Because I work for a company, and you're not talking about quantifying your successes, and you're not talking about the things that are relevant in my community, I am going to think we have a language barrier here. And my friend says, if you want to work in France, you want to speak French. And if you want to work in Japan, it would be smart to learn Japanese, right? And so similarly, if you're going to work in industry, you want to speak their language. And so that means you want to make sure that you are absolutely understanding what moves them, what motivates them, what's important to them, and then incorporating that language into your documents. But guess what? The vast majority of that language, you're going to be able to pick up from the networking. So what I would encourage you to do if you can is please book a career consultation with me, because I can do a deep dive and really look at your resume very, very carefully, present to you a number of things that you can do immediately, and I can also help you with the networking plan so you can start building allies in the community. So thank you for that question. Another person asks, I'm transitioning out of academia after a PhD, but I'm having trouble networking in industry. Suppose I've researched 5 companies and organizations. Who would I ideally contact? A recruiter, an employer, either one. So you would utilize, for example, your community. So you can use LinkedIn. Thank you for that question, by the way. You can look at LinkedIn and you can see, do I know anybody who went to my alma mater who works for that company? And then I can find that person and ask them for a meeting. So it really is about leveraging the people that are closest to you. And we've done a number of webinars on LinkedIn, about LinkedIn, that's also in that catalog, and you can get ideas about that from there. So, but let me know if you have additional questions on that. Does this person ask, does any of your advice change if you are a mid-career astronomer who has had senior leadership or management roles for many years? Do you have advice for looking for senior management roles? So great question, and thank you for bringing that up. And I think you're going to laugh because you already know what I'm going to say, and that is it sort of doesn't change, but it does change a little bit. The changing a little bit is that in some ways, the networking is even more paramount. So when you, being a senior leader in your field, are advancing and taking on more and more leadership roles, meaning that you are going to have more budget, more teams, there's going to be higher stakes associated with you serving the community. Well, you want to make sure that you are leveraging networking and really customizing your materials, because they need to see that the risk in engaging you is much less compared to somebody else that they don't know. And the more engagement they have with you, because this is a risky job, because it's at a higher level, the more their risk is going, the more they're going to perceive you as a low risk investment. And so that is a key thing that helps you advance and also learn a little bit more about the background materials, the background information, the language, the context, the issues that are pertaining to that particular employer, so that you can then talk about that in your materials. So absolutely key to do that as well. I see we have, thank you for that question. I see we have one more question. I have experience in a lot of disparate sectors in addition to science. I did not job hop. I just had a few false starts in other careers. You know what? I have had multiple careers and multiple experiences and multiple threads that have been woven throughout my life. They are very diverse. So I applaud you for being you and also leveraging that so you can be better. I don't have gaps in employment, but I struggle with tying these different positions together to create a coherent narrative. Do you have any advice on this? So yes, I absolutely do. I do suggest you book a meeting with me, because we can address your specific needs. But in particular, with that, there is always value from every experience that you can then correlate with a particular organization and a particular job. The challenge is the bridge of marketing, right? Using their language, understanding, if I have skill X, how will this help me over here? So for an example, one of my clients is actually one of my former students. She is in the biosciences arena, but while she worked for a company in biosciences and life sciences, she actually also took a job outside of work, a second job, just for the fun of it. She actually ended up working for Kate Spade because she loves fashion and purses. So I really appreciate that. And in that job, which was just every weekend, she would sell purses and all sorts of different products in a retail environment. And so the question is that relevant to her being a bioscientist? And the answer is hell yes, it is. First of all, she's getting customer service, which is relevant to any type of role you get. She's learning about how to effectively market, which is relevant to every role you're going to get. She's learning about merchandising and inventory and crisis communications, like what happens if somebody comes in and starts screaming, how do you handle that? So she's gaining incredibly valuable resources and skills and solutions that she can then apply as a life scientist in industry. And so what we did together was we worked on creating that bridge so that she would be able to effectively communicate. This wasn't just a side thing. It wasn't that she just loved purses. It was that she specifically was also interested in mining this role to help her be better in another role. So I hope that's helpful to you. All right. Thank you all so much. I know we all have to go. I appreciate your extra time. Diane, thank you so much for giving us this extra time. Please feel free and contact me if you need additional resources. And if you have trouble downloading those materials, send me an email and I can send them to you as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Diane, and I wish you all the best. Have a great rest of your day.